Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about?
Hey, hey, hey.
Hello there.
Good evening.
It is Kitchen Talk CTC, Conversations That Cook. I am super, super excited. I just love doing this. So I'm always excited when I get a chance to come on and chat it up with the people. I love it. I love it. I love it. Listen, I gotta play this one theme before we get started. Because it has inspired me. So now, whenever I do this show, I'm going to play this video. All right, y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay. No, I don't mind vote. Yes. Yes, I think it's important. You know, see, I'm 100 years old, and a long time ago, we didn't, black folks didn't do any voting or something like that. And it was sounding funny then. Got to go vote. But it's all right now. Ever since I'm like people vote, I've been voting. And so if somebody don't bring me, I won't have a chance to vote.
Amazing. Amazing. Like, we have no excuse.
Yeah.
Like, no excuse. So this is I think this was back in 2020. Um and so as far as I know, she is still living and still voting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She is the great aunt of one of the deacons that goes to my church.
Oh,
Wow.
nice. I think about the stuff that Miss Lenora and people her age have seen
Yes.
from the impossible to the present, from the possible.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can't even imagine
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
that makes them feel.
Mhm. And she even said, like, you when she was before, you didn't really say it. She said it seems funny now, but then it wasn't funny. Like, they were trying to get the vote. And now she votes no
Yeah.
matter what.
The Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. My husband and my brother were born in 69. My father was born in 38. My mother was born in 47. So they grew up. My mother's from another country, but my father grew up in segregation.
Yeah.
And, Black folk, quote unquote, after slavery had the right to vote with
Yeah.
the 13th and the 14th Amendment. But after Reconstruction, the progress we made in those short years, they shut it down. And it took a whole nother 100 years for us to be able to vote without the threat of violence.
Mhm.
And so it's so crucial that we understand we are not far removed from that reality.
No.
It can go
No.
very quickly if we let our guard down. So we cannot be complacent, and nor can we be entitled and privileged to the point where we lose the gains that our parents, I can't even
Mhm.
say ancestors, our parents and grandparents won for us,
Yeah,
Serious.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's it's so crucial. It is so crucial. Which is why this is one of like a staple topic for Kitchen Talk. We are gonna talk about voting. That it's like as many times as we need to talk about it because it's so important. And I have expressed so many times my dislike for politics and politicians, but it's so necessary. It's like you just gotta keep doing it until we get it right.
Mhm.
You just gotta keep doing it until we get it right. But it's crazy. It's okay. So let me ask you guys this. All right, here we go. Pastor D, here we go. So I heard somebody say that they felt like there was an excitement in the air, right? I, I know. Like you haven't seen him, Pastor D, have you?
brother.
I
Welcome
don't
to
have to be
America.
seen. Good to see y'all, but let me tell you, I don't have to be seen because I will be heard. My voice will count because I will be voting tomorrow.
All right.
There you go, brother.
Let's
Right,
make it
right, right,
happen, America.
right.
Let's make it happen. Good to
So
see you guys. Welcome to
I
Kitchen
know,
Talk.
right? Welcome to the show, Fransley Moist.
It's awesome, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
So we've been digging just right in. McLeod, you know France, right?
Yes,
Okay,
I
okay,
do.
okay.
And I want to apologize because I just started talking and didn't give you the opportunity.
It's all good.
Nothing.
That's how we roll in Kitchen Talk.
It is what we do, and I think people have come to just kind of, appreciate that about us.
Yes.
But yes, it is Kitchen Talk CTC Conversations That Could. We displayed this inspirational video. I had to play it about a 100-year-old woman voting and expressing her need and passion to vote. I love it. It's so inspirational. And it also just reminds us that we do not have any excuses not to get it done. Not to get it done. And then joining us in the kitchen tonight is Dr. McLeod. And I definitely invited her. She's a historian and a journalist, and we work together, and I value her thought process. So I wanted to invite her in. And then we have and she's been on the show a couple of times too. So I love having her on. Also, we have Pastor Darrick D. McGhee Sr., who we always, every time we have a voting show,
Got to be on here.
he has got to be on here with his political science background, his lobbying background, and just his wealth of knowledge and everything that we get a good social studies lesson when he's on here too. So I just love it. I just love it. I just love it. And then we're so glad to see Fransley Moist
That's
this
right.
week.
Good to be seen.
Because our last couple of voting shows, it's just been me and Doctor. You
Look
working
at
on
you.
that?
Look at
You
you.
working on that?
Look at you. I don't know. I guess you saw something.
Okay, Dr. McGhee.
You saw something.
And me bothering him saying, I just don't get it.
Oh, man.
So again, this is just one of those topics that you just cannot leave alone. You know, you
Yeah.
just cannot let it go. You just cannot sit by. It is an ongoing process. So even after, so we get the before we vote. What are we doing before we vote? Are we establishing a plan? Are we doing our research? And then we get the okay, here I am. I'm going to vote. So I'm voting, I'm
Mhm.
voting, I'm voting. After I've done that, now what do I do? So it's an ongoing cycle. It's not ending just because it's 2024 and it's time for us to vote for a president. No. After on November 6th, we still got work to do.
Yeah, because you missed another part to that process is holding the people accountable for the ones you voted for. Whether the person you voted for won or not, we still got to hold accountable whoever's in office, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just a blank card to say, okay, yeah, you won, go do your thing.
Right.
No, we want to make sure that the things that you say you were going to do, you do. And maybe even the things you said, you know, you super exceed what you say you're going to do to say, yeah, I want your vote again in the next 4 years. So that is part of the process, right? That I think sometimes we miss is that we have to be in the midst of the what's the word I want to use? Scholars, the process of government. We need to be in the midst of that, right? So talking to your elected officials and writing to your elected officials, letting them know, hey, this is something that I care about. This is something that we need to move on. These are some of the topics we need to address. Right. And maybe I don't like how you're moving in this manner, and you need to tread lightly because, again, you were elected to be here. Right. This is not a full-time, this is not a, what did Donald Trump say? I don't want people to vote again. No, wow. That's not what happened, right? So if you don't do the job, guess what? You got to go.
However, if we are not careful and do the job,
you hear what he said?
It could happen again.
Why the eyes? Why the eyes?
I'm just saying.
That is our job to
because
elect.
Because, and I don't know. Well, y'all know I feel a little jaded anyway about all of this. But when I think about how it was something that just happened with the hurricanes, and somebody who's supposed to sign off on the emergency relief funds is saying they're not going to sign off.
Oh, that's the speaker
after the election.
For the House, Mike Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the election.
Yeah.
People are hurting and in distress and trying to put their lives back together, and you have the power to help, and you're not going to do it for whatever reason. But you in office for the people.
But the key word is power. And if we want to give away our power, then we don't vote, or you don't engage. But they are in power, and their decisions impact our people. I mean, look, voting was never intended in this country for the masses. In America, it was white men, the age, can't get the age wrong, property owners. Those were the ones who were eligible to vote. So that lets you know right there, it was not about equality. It was about wealth, and it was about gender and power, because they felt that they had the intelligence and the wherewithal to think and make decisions for the broader group of people. And so you don't start seeing poor people voting until after the Civil War. You definitely don't see Black people voting until after the Civil War. So in masses, when I'm talking about with poor people. So it's always been a game of power and money. So if you want to see that power, now that we have all the conveniences in the world, and we can be complacent, and then when things get too bad to turn around quickly, then we're stuck and we're in a struggle. But that man is sitting home in his comfortable home. He doesn't have to bury a loved one or two, or like one man who lost 11 members of his family at one time in Hurricane Helene. Because the house washed away. And where do you bury them? Because everything is messed up in the town.
Yeah.
He can sit comfortably to say, well, we'll just wait until after the election, because we have to have we have to have specific numbers on what the damages are. Any type of appropriation is based off of an assessment when you're talking about natural disasters.
But
So,
you know what? I was
it's not
educated on this point that prior to the federal government getting in and providing services, the state government has to do its part, right? So the state government has to do the assessment. The state government has to provide X, Y, or Z. And then the federal government comes in and provides that extra feed. So there's so many layers that we miss, and people who are supposed to be a part of the process, that we can't just pin it on one. So yes, one person is sitting and just watching, but he's not the only one. There are a lot of people who need to be doing their jobs to ensure that these cities and these families, they get back to some type of normalcy, right? And it's never going to be normal again, but some type of normalcy. And that starts again, not at the federal level. It actually starts at the state level. What is the state doing to ensure that they're providing whatever type of service they can provide to their citizens? And then come down to the federal government to say, okay, here's what else we're going to do to ensure you get back to normal.
Yeah, the request, that's true. The request, though, was for them to release additional emergency funds so the states would have access to that immediately and not have to wait. And that's what the federal government was holding up, because the House wouldn't sign off on it. So the states are at the mercy. You see what I'm saying? So
I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree with you. But again, I do think it goes back to that red tape, right? So what did the state do? Did the state use their fundings, or are they still just going after the federal funds before they even touch their coffers to start the process to help the people that they took office to help, right? So let's ensure that we're using our dollars. Let's ensure that we're pushing and giving our best efforts. And again, yeah, we want those funds immediately because we want to, again, help as many people as possible, and not slow up the process. That red tape kills us every single time.
So for
but
me,
I think it's on both sides of the fence.
It's beyond all of that. It's just the fact that you're sitting in a place to help people and you're not. And this is what you tell us when you run. I'm here for you. And it's not just this particular incident. It's so many things that you don't do for politics.
Yeah.
That do not, you have no consideration to me for the people. That's the part.
And I agree. It's the people that miss out.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. Jump in there, Pastor.
Listen,
you're sitting on the edge.
This is great conversation, and every scenario you guys lay out is correct. I think the thing that we're forgetting to discuss is the system runs smoothly when the politics don't get involved, right? The politics are heavily involved, and so what's been discussed is right. But you think about it. What incentive does our governor have to cooperate, work with the president? None, right? At this point, now what it comes down to is trying to prove to the viewing world who's doing what. I'm doing better. We're doing all these type of things of that nature, right? It's all of that. I think, and Dr. McLeod said this, right? The opposite, for me, the opposite of help is power. Right. I mean, people don't look at it that way, but I look at it that way because, help is me thinking about you. Power is me thinking about me. Right. Think about people who serve in Congress, for example. Why do they stay well into their 80s? Because they can't relinquish the power. Right. They could be senile, like hard of hearing, whatever it may be. But their whole name has been associated with that position, the level of power. So they keep running for re-election because that's what they're known for. Right. You think about our Speaker Johnson, as we aforementioned, saying what he's not going to do. And what was interesting about that is within the same Republican Party, he has people who are saying they want to, they want to unseat him. Right. The same ones who elected him to speakership over Kevin McCarthy. Now they want to move him out of the way. So it's when power is put in the hands of certain persons, it becomes even more detrimental. And the people who lose is always the people,
It's always the
right? It's
people.
always the people. Politicians have learned what to say to garner the vote, to win the race, to secure the seat, and to stay in it. If you research it, it's not impossible, but it's very challenging to unseat an incumbent. It's not impossible, right? But you look at some of these people who serve for years, right? Because it's hard to unseat an incumbent. And so they realize what they need to do. They know that they need to show up at certain points before the election, say the right things. But Fran said it earlier, right? Well, we don't do accountability well.
Mhm.
We'll do accountability. We'll vote, and once the election's over, come November 6th, some people are gonna go back to business as usual.
Yep.
For another 4 years or so. And here's the thing about it: we'll go another 4 years, but in 2 years, we're at a gubernatorial election,
Correct.
right? With an open ticket,
Yep.
right? So this is an open ticket, and we'll sleep on the midterm election.
Correct.
And so it's those type of things. But that word power is a dangerous thing in any setting when people secure power, especially when you have power with ulterior motives.
Mhm.
I think the piece with the power is understanding when the power should be used, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
correct.
currently, this is the time for the people to show their power, right?
Good point.
Your power right now is to say, okay, this is who we want to move on, and this is who we want to support. This is when we show the power that we have. I think where we also lose traction is when we don't do the grassroots stuff. So why do these people stay in power for so long? Specifically when they're not doing a good job, is because we don't do the grassroots work to say, okay, this guy or this gal is not doing a great job. What can we do? What do we need to do? Let's go to church, door to door, bank to bank, right? Person to person, to say, hey, we have somebody that's going to do a better job. This person said that they were going to do a job. They have not done that job in X amount of years, even if it's one. We now are ready to move on to the next person because this is our chance and our time to use our power. But again, we fail to use it. We get caught up, as Rev just stated earlier. We get caught up in the politics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they show you a pretty dime or a pretty car, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I got you. No, what have you done, and what are you doing, and what do you plan to do?
And sometimes the shift is not an easy one because make no mistake about it, the deck is stacked against us.
Oh yeah,
because of all of the manipulation of the political system, the electoral system. It's designed when the people who are in power lose, they change the rules and they have all these shenanigans to shut you out. So gerrymandering, which is redistricting, you know, they draw these ridiculous lines to carve out the voting population that they want to put in the majority to keep them in power. You know, Mississippi was 80% Black, but all of its elected officials were white at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. That's not a coincidence.
Nope.
And the world would have you think that Black folk were so disconnected and uninterested or incapable of managing for themselves that they wouldn't even get out to go and vote. When the truth of the matter is that when they voted and they put those people in office that they wanted, then the other side, they executed a game plan to shut them out to where the minority in Mississippi is in power. And so we have to work extra hard. We have to be vigilant. We have to get these people in office so they can have a seat at the table to make a difference. People who reflect our values and our interests to make a difference. And a lot of it, like Brother Moy said, it's at the local level. It's the grassroots level where the change is made. And you can ask Obama that because that's how he got to where he got. It was all grassroots campaigning and exercising and service.
Yeah.
We use the word power for the corruptible side. And if you think about the people who are noble and in leadership who are doing well for mankind, they use the word service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's power versus service.
You know, and as you were saying that, that's who I was thinking about. You know, that Obama push, that Obama, hey, we're gonna start from the bottom. We're gonna start talking to people. We're gonna start building coalitions. We're gonna start doing all that we can to show that, hey, we are part of this process, and we just didn't come here from to yesterday. We've been here. We know who we need to help. We know where the issues are. But Doc, there's still an issue that you brought up earlier, and I use this in my workshops. If you don't know how to play, you're gonna get played. You're gonna get played, and see, we've been getting played since the Civil War. The game has changed. The people have changed. You won the war, but you didn't win the war. You won the election, but you didn't win the election. You got the area, but no, we're gonna change up the area. So we got to be in the game to win the game. So I'm hoping that people come out, they vote, and all that is good, but we also need to stay in the game, keep the people accountable. There's a lot of races. So we all just talking about the presidential race, but you got to vote down that ticket.
Yep. You
So
definitely have to vote down the ballot.
You got to go down the ticket.
And France, I always have a problem with France and that play to get played. And my reasoning is you're gonna change the rules. So
because you don't know the rules.
How can I learn the game?
I'm gonna change the game.
How can I play the game if the rules are constantly changing?
Correct. And that's the problem.
So in order to play the game, you got to know what the game is. Like we can know the game, we see the game, but if you keep changing the rules every time we meet the game, and it look like we about to win, and then you pull the goalpost. Like, oh no, it ain't on that line no more. It's down here. So I won't subject y'all to me and France in that way.
Hold on. No, but though I like that. So let me give you an example though of how what you said is true. Let me give you an example of how we mess up, right? So I lobby the legislature here in Florida. Every 2 years, the presiding officers change over, right? So November 19th, we'll get a new speaker, a new Senate president. They'll serve 2 years. In that same org session, they also vote on the joint rules that will govern their chambers, right? Typically in years past, right, it's like a rubber stamp. They put it up there, members vote, usually pass unanimously. As you progress through session, you start having Democrats who are in the minority in Florida. They will complain about things happening on the floor of the House or the Senate chamber. They will complain about things occurring in committee, right? They will complain about whatever it may be. It wasn't until maybe 4 years ago, Representative Dottie Joseph from Miami did something that was unusual. She voted against the rules at the org session, which, mind you, is a celebratory time. Everybody's taking the oath of office, being sworn into office. They just won their races. She voted against it, and it did an article about it, and she got some pushback. And the people asked her why she did it, and she said because she came to the realization that when I vote for these joint rules, I'm voting to endorse the same document that ties my hands later. And so there are examples where, because we don't read what they're putting in front of us, right, in any setting, right, you may be literally voting for was actually keeping you disenfranchised.
Yep.
Right. And so that's important. You talk about down ballot. I was just watching Jamar Harrison Bryant has a podcast today. He actually on there, he uploaded, he interviewed Stacey Abrams. And she was talking about the grassroots in Georgia. Dr. McLeod mentioned about how every time they lose, they change things. But she talked a lot about down ballot races, right? About city and county commission, about school board. And she said, everybody's aware of who's running for president, but them same people most times don't know who's running for superintendent in their own community.
Correct.
And she said, if you want to know who's going to run for national office tomorrow, look at who's running for local office today.
Yep.
She said people don't realize that because we don't focus on what that looks like. But another good example is judicial races, right?
Yep.
Who's on there for judges?
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, those are the ones making some critical decisions that's going to have a major impact. Last thing I'll tell you. So the biggest amendments we have now in Florida that's getting a lot of attention is Amendment 3 and 4. Some people don't realize and is no matter what, as they say, the amendment passes of 60% or more, it comes back to the legislature for implementation, right? Give you a good example with when they did the restoration of rights for felons. That came back to the legislature. You know what they did? They didn't say, well, that's really not what the voters meant. Yeah, they approved it. They didn't mean it that way. So then they started massaging and basically trying to speak for the people, what it meant to say, because it comes back to them. And so when you fall asleep the day after the election, which is what they're expecting, then what ends up happening is that you went to sleep at the wrong time. And so it's very important to know who's on the ballot, know the issues on the ballot, read what's on the ballot, right? And then when you vote, then hold people accountable in that regard. Let's remember now in the Black community, if you ever wanted to run for office, you had to come through the Black church, right? You had to be able to speak to the people and explain what was going on. But on the back end, if you won, those same churches were in your face constantly reminding you of what you're doing and you're not doing. And now what's happening is you almost have clergy sometimes being put on the payroll of politicians to keep them quiet. And I can say that as a clergy, right? Keeping them quiet. And so when they need to be speaking out on behalf of their congregants, they're quiet on those things because something happening on the other end. That's why now you're seeing more people getting contracts to help, do sign waving or phone banking and so on and so forth, because the best way to silence you is to pay you.
Yeah.
Correct. You got to check. But you forgot that you're supposed to be the person that check these people. That's your job. Your job is to check somebody. But you rather get the check to do a fun. How many? We're not going to go to the church today. We're not.
So speaking of money and
we have some great churches and some great pastors who are doing the job, who are in the trenches.
Yes.
They telling their folks what is a part of that process of coming to the Black church is the education, right? Correct. So not just saying, oh, this is who you should vote for. No, this is why this person, this is why you should vote for this person. This person aligns with the values and the vision that we have for not just ourselves, but for our community. When we start losing that, we have a problem, Houston.
Yeah. But you know what I like seeing just here recently in some churches that I've been in and the politicians come in, they get acknowledged, but they don't get to say nothing.
They'll hit the microphone, bro.
I love it. I love it.
The microphone.
I love it.
You know what it is, right?
We're so glad to have you today. Oh, praise God.
Usually what happens though is they're used to getting the microphone early in service,
right?
Which affords them a chance to leave, go to another church, or they end up doing 3 churches. So when you make them, you don't give them the microphone, right? Then they have to sit through the whole entire service. And there are some who run, they come for the full worship, right? They may even call you in advance that I want to come to your church, things of that nature. So what I usually do at my church is at the end, I'll acknowledge them. Then I'll say, hey, this person's running for this seat or whatever. They'll be out in the welcome area. Anybody have questions for them, you can go out there and ask them questions. And whether they had agreed to do it or not, now I put them on. Yeah. Now you have to wait around, right? I think that's important. I'm gonna give you a race in Leon County that many times we don't think about, and it's property appraiser.
Yep.
Right. Like if you were a homeowner, right, like that, like you want to know what's going on in those regards. But again, everything we see is always at top of the ticket. We don't think it at the bottom of the ticket. We just don't think about what that looks like in those impacts. I'm going to always be an advocate for voting. I don't care how people feel about, well, my vote don't matter. I'm gonna always argue against that standard, right? We have to. You absolutely have to. Yeah. I think this upcoming presidential election, I think number one, I think the media portrayal would have you thinking a lot of things, right? It will have you thinking that there are a population of people who's not going to support Harris. If you think the race is going to be close, now, I think it's going to be a close race. I think it's going to be close race. Close and like, it may be it's going to be a late night. But
I don't know about that. I think there are people that they have not accounted for that are gonna show up. Right? I
agree with that. But when I say a late night, I'm saying it in this regard because you can't assume that let's say Harris wins. You can't assume that Trump is going to concede. you can't assume that he's
Oh,
not
he's
going
not.
to claim
No.
stolen, right? That's what I mean by a late night. It's going to
Yeah.
be a lot of other things,
Yeah.
right? And so they're going to be those things are taking place, but you can't worry about those things. You got to
Yeah.
do your part in the whole process, and I think people got to be mindful of that. Now, you mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, Lisa, that I wanted to come back to about. I think you used the word momentum or excitement. I can't remember which word you used, and it
Yeah,
is.
I didn't quite get that one all the way out. But yeah.
There are people who are excited. They're motivated. You know, they're really, really intrigued about what's going on. You know, a lot of things happening. I have to give kudos to Harris's campaign in this regard. She got a late start and recovered really well,
Yeah.
right? To make it to really become legit, because you would really want to have way more time than she had.
Yeah.
But, you know, she hit the ground running. And I mean, you raise that amount of money in 24 hours, right? Makes things different. But we have to make sure that we're doing our part of continuing to educate ourselves, talking to people, encouraging people to vote, all those things that have to be done, because the video you mentioned in the beginning, 100-year-old lady from a few years ago, but it means something different to her, but it's also should mean something to us as well.
Right. Right. And so I was talking about some was talking about the excitement, and then I think I was listening to DL Hughley the other day, and they were talking about how some people are having a little bit of anxiety about this election. It's just like the whole gamut of emotions are really surrounding what is going on, because this really is like, or can be, a historical moment.
Well, it will
And
be.
what is going to be the reaction if it is a historical moment?
Come on,
That
Madam Hair Historian. I want to hear Doc on this one.
It's going to be historic way, because we've never had a fool be president, tell everybody to go and tear down the country and then come back and run for office and get reelected. So that would be a historical moment. Having our first woman would be a historical moment. Have we had one? Usually
No.
presidents, they run back to back,
No.
right? They do their
Yeah.
8 years. After Roosevelt, after Franklin Roosevelt was in office for 16 years, they was like, dude, we got to cut it. So, you know, you did your consecutive, you ran, and you know, but we lose sight of the fact that this man helped incite a riot against our government.
Yeah.
All right. That's sedition. That is a crime.
Yeah.
That is a crime, right?
And let me add this too. I know you're gonna put this, but people died. Because he said, oh, people died. People who worked for the government died.
And it's because there is a contingent of society who was emboldened by his leadership. So leadership matters in your churches. It matters at our universities. It matters at our government. It matters in our home. If our house is in chaos, you better believe mom and daddy are in chaos. So, you know, the leadership matters. So we can't let him wash his hands clean of that. And so he had a role, because he emboldened his mere presence, which was a backlash of an Obama being elected back to back. Those people were stewing. They've been pissed for a very long time, right? And so that happens. All right. America prides itself on the peaceful transition of power. That did not happen.
It did not.
Under his leadership. So now we've got a man who has monopolized Biden's 4 years, his entire 4-year presidency. We've heard nothing but Trump, 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 Trump. So he's had a major influence, a continued influence on politics in America. If this man gets reelected, that's historic, that you're going to have someone come back, get back in office with all of the, you know, the issues that he claimed. If Vice President Harris gets elected, it's a historic moment. It's a woman. She's a Black woman. She's a minority, Indian woman as well. So all of these things are coming to play. And make no mistake about it, the woman is qualified. I am confused as to people who's questioning her qualifications. She rose in the ranks from an attorney to an attorney general to a senator to the vice president. I mean, she has the political background. You remember Trump was a celebrity, so he didn't have any political type of
still don't have it
background.
Yeah,
but he's what America wanted and put him in office, right? So either way, it's going to be a historic moment. The question is how will it affect the masses, and how will the masses move under these leaderships and under these regimes, whichever regime it is. And that's why there are a lot of people who have a lot of anxiety, because the results of elections can cause a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, and it can cause a lot of bloodshed. It can cause a lot of angst at the workplace. It can cause a lot of dissensions in our homes. And so people have a lot to bank on. And we're so polarized. Our country is so polarized that we have just lost sight of humanity being at the forefront. Now, politics is at the forefront. So it's nerve-wracking. And, you know, people are concerned about their lives. And I don't mean just the conditions of their lives, but literally whether they live or die. Because folk are concerned about their medicine, folk are concerned about their money, whichever group you land on. And so I think there is a real cause for concern. One thing that I wanted to mention about when we talked about power, and when we're talking about Mrs. what's her last name? The lady you showed in the beginning? Miss
Lenora.
Miss Lenora. During her time, her 100 years she's been around. So what, we're in 2024. So she was born in 19.
That was a few years ago, though.
So that was a few years ago.
So that was 2020. So
yeah.
So she was born in 1920.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So one thing that we had, and I'm talking about Black folk now, I'm shifting gears because that's where I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the gains being rolled back. And make no mistake about it, they've already been rolled back. We are farther behind the 8 ball than we have ever been. I mean, even here in Florida, it is almost a crime to teach true history. Right. And so not almost, it is a crime.
It is.
But during that time period, we had Black institutions. We had Black newspapers, our Black churches, we had Black businesses, we had Black educational institutions, and our institutions were the conveyors of information, and they were sharing the information about what we should be doing, how we should be doing, how we should be moving. So we were a collective unit. Right now, we are very divided as Black people. Even if it's not on a political issue, just economically, we're not, we're on very different spectrums, our faiths and our thoughts and all of these types of things. So us moving together as a block, a voting block or an economic block, that's very fragmented. And until we start unifying like we used to be and move together as a unit, we're going to struggle regardless of who's in office at the state level, the local level, the federal level. And so we've got a lot of work to do because we've got to unify ourselves in order to move regardless of who is in office.
So Doc, let me ask a question of you, because I love what you're saying, but I struggle with this, and I feel like this race here has, I don't know if it's magnified or just resurrected some things, right? Like I feel like there's some Black men who looks at a Black woman and say, you don't qualify. You need to be in the kitchen or in the bedroom, right? I feel like there are Black men who are falling behind the shiny object, right? And so they're swayed by whatever Trump is proposing. But the question I was going to ask you is, as you talking about history just then, do you have an opinion or a thought on when the shift started taking place? For us as a people,
Black men,
or just Black people in general, where we just started almost inner fighting each other versus just fighting together against whatever. It's not, we're not fighting each other.
Yes, where the fragmentation became.
Yes.
I think, first of all, our first form of fragmentation is going to be economic, and I think it's a clear arrow pointing to integration.
Okay.
And so when integration happens and we get the opportunity to be in different spheres in society, now it is more of looking out for myself versus looking out for community, because we had a lot more to lose. Prior to integration, the ones who were the wealthy elite, 9 times out of 10, they were using the positions, the tables that they were able to sit at to advocate on behalf of the masses. But the masses were also supporting their businesses. These people were the business owners in the community. They were the ministers of the churches. And so they had the Black mass support economically, and they did not have to depend on other groups to get or maintain their wealth. Once we start integrating and our money is now outside of our community and our customers are not just Black folk, our parishioners are not just Black folk, I need to depend on other people's money. That's going to affect my voice, and it's going to affect my comfort level, because now I have more access. So I would say in the period of integration coming in the end of the 1960s, the early 1970s,
Wow.
is when we really start seeing a lot of fragmentation. Even and you can see a major shift in the 80s. That's when you start seeing a lot of Black people breaking ceilings, economic ceilings in a lot of industries. Like you're going to have Oprah is going to rise in the media industry. You're going to see Black athletes are now going to get paid, $1 million contracts, when before they were never paid that kind of money. And so you will see them having access to this money and access to this privilege. And now I have a lot more to lose. But at the same time, the politics shifted too. And our communities became fragmented and decimated. So now we don't even have communities to call our home.
Yeah, you're right.
Where you had the wealthy Black elite living with the middle class, living with the poor in the same communities. And so we got a lot of fragmentation. I think as far as our brothers today, a lot of them feel it's a lot of people struggling.
Yeah.
And
correct.
when you have any sliver of opportunity to exercise your power, you're going to do it. And sometimes it manifests itself in many unhealthy ways, and those ways might be against each other. And I think what's happening with a lot of our brothers, some of them are feeling emasculated, some of them are feeling unappreciated and taken advantage of. The same old argument about the Democratic Party taking us for granted is the same argument that they had when they said the Republican Party was taking us for granted. So I hear what they're saying, but at the end of the day, we have to move as a unit. Little individual pockets is not going to it's not going to help us. It's going to do more harm than good. But I would see that shift in integration. Oh, that was a long answer.
That's hopeful though.
No,
That's really hopeful.
no, it was great. It was
So
great.
I do want to say, go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
So I hear what you're saying, and then you can help me too. But hasn't there always kind of been a little bit of a divide, like especially with like schools of thought? So you had W.E.B. Du Bois, and you had
Booker T.
Washington. You had a Malcolm X, and you had a Martin Luther King. And even since those type of leaders, it's like we all want to get to the same place, but our methods and how we're going to get there, I think that is one of the things. So does that stem from the segregation part too, of us not being able to come together and decide? Or is it about the leadership? Am I going to be in charge? I mean, we see it. I've seen it in churches. Like, you want to have a citywide revival. Well, don't nobody want to do it because what pastor going to get the money? What pastor going to be in charge? Who church is going to be at?
Let me tell you,
thing. It's
Let
just
me tell you, Lisa. That's why I shook my head, and Doc, you made some valid points. Valid
You
points.
did.
But first, before I even say that, I'm a black man, and I'm voting for the Harris campaign. So I got to put that out there. I'm a black man, and I'm voting for my vice president. So for all my black and brown and white men who have any type of sense, let's get on it. Okay, number 2. This thing has gone back since Willie Lynch. See, that's the thing. We have to go way back. We can't just go a little bit. We got to go way back. This thing has been ingrained in our system since Willie Lynch. The process of separating, the process of saying, okay, you get a little bit more than this person, and you don't have to work as hard as this person, and you can stay by my side, and you can help raise my kids, and you have to stay. This has always been an issue for us, and we never have gotten past it. Again, this is Willie Lynch. This is Civil War, where property was taken and we didn't get any of the prize. They changed the game on us. And I think, again, until we rectify that, until we go back to that and say, okay, what can we do to heal from that? We're consistently going to have a problem. I think we've had pockets where we've done a little bit better, where we say, you know what, this is an issue, so we're going to come as a united front to say, hey, we're not gonna take this no more, right? The new phrase now, we're not going back. But there are certain things that, for me, is how do we continue that momentum, even when there's not a reason for all of us to stand up, right? There's not a person who died, a major issue to bring us all together. What is it that we can say? And really, it should be what it is. You are a black woman, I am a black man, and we are a black community, and we're moving together in unison, right? Willie Lynch.
So there's always going to be dissension. Because people are not monolithic. The difference between the era of Willie Lynch, which is a period of slavery, is those people were trying to survive hell on earth. And whatever form of peace or survival that I could snatch while I'm playing the game with Massa, or if I have to turn against my brother, whatever it is. And remember, these people are disconnected from their homeland, don't know where they are, how they ever gonna get back. Their children are being sold. So that's a game of survival, not even a game. That's a rule of survival. I'm talking about when we have all the conveniences in the world and we have choices.
And that's why I feel like that
we have safe options and safe choices. And make no mistake about it, we got out of slavery with Black folk moving in unison and unity together and strategizing against a system, playing folk, playing the game. They had to figure something out. W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, they are the recipients of freedom. They are the inheritors of freedom. And just like my son will never know the struggle of growing up without cable or air conditioning or a heater.
Come on now.
Because he is the beneficiary of my convenience. And, you know, my mother and my father, what they went through, I didn't have to experience that. So those two eras, they are the beneficiaries of freedom. The difference between Booker T and WB is Booker T was enslaved. So Booker T had to say, this is how we move in a society that's mad. We're fresh out of slavery. Don't pushing these white folk too far. Let's try to make some means by using the skills that we already use to make real money in the system. W.E.B. Du Bois was born free in the North. He was able to get an education. So they had two totally different experiences. What I teach my students is we miss the villain. And the villain in the picture is the media. It is the mainstream white America who's telling you choose. You have to choose one or the other.
That's good.
It divides us. When in the reality was Booker T's way would work. along the same way that W.E.B. Du Bois' way would work, the same way where Marcus Garvey's way would work. Black folk, we need all of it.
That's good.
Correct.
And all at the same time.
Correct.
So right.
And they said, pick one. You're either going to be on the side of the man who is saying non-violence at the hands of violence, or the man who's saying justice by any means necessary.
Right.
Which way do you think the media was blowing us? They were blowing us to Malcolm.
King.
They were blowing us to Reverend King because he is the safer of the choice for them.
Right.
But in the reality is we needed King and we needed Malcolm. Right, but we fall for the okie doke.
And that's that is exactly what I meant by Willie Lynch.
Yeah, we're trying to grab
it's the same process. It's just switched in a different. They just manufacture it in a new light, in a new way.
Yeah.
Right.
Why
so the media is
history, so we won't keep falling for this. We are too smart for all of this.
Yeah.
And even those two men, Malcolm and Martin, came together.
They did come together.
Correct. Correct.
To say, y'all, we fighting for the same right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Let's work together on this. That's why they took Malcolm
out
here.
That's the danger. That's the danger right there, is the fact that those two came together. That's the danger.
We tolerate you when you're fighting each other.
Yeah.
We tolerate you when you're not working with each other. But hey, once we see the power that you have when you unify. And see, that's the biggest piece that I think we miss out on. It's not just the black unification or the brown unification or the yellow unification. It's a unification of how do we make America better? Right? How do we help the people that are disenfranchised? How do we help the people who are not doing well? How do we help move that? Again, they want to see you fight. They want to see you separated. They don't want to see the unification.
I think about
there's violence, but go ahead.
I think about and y'all know me.
I was saying when you do unify, there's violence to separate you again.
Of course,
yes, it's clear. Yes, it's a dangerous existence.
Yeah.
So you have to have people who are fearless.
And because it comes back down to not just color or it comes back down to power, right? Because I want the power, I got to keep certain people at the bottom and certain people at the top. Yeah. And as long as I can keep y'all talking about who gets what and when and how, and I'm going to continue to work this game until we start to say, no, you know what? This is about the people. Whether you black, brown, purple, green, or yellow, we want to have. There's one thing I realize, no matter where you come from, everybody wants the simple things. If I could have the simple, then I could move to everything else. Water, food, shelter, right?
Security.
Education, security, upward mobility. If I have those opportunities, how much more can I do? Then I get to choose. But when you start taking that away from people and separating people, now you control the game.
Yeah. What actually just came to my mind was when we talk about unifying was the Bible. Like even God was like, ain't nothing they can do if they together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing is impossible to them if they together.
That's why you go down that tower.
I mean, scripture says, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren who dwell together in unity, right? Yes, there's just a power of unifying. So then the same way there's a power for unification, there's also a power to have division.
Yeah.
Right. Like Doc made a really good point. And we never hear this, but I'm so glad you mentioned it, is Malcolm and Martin both ways worked.
Yep. Right.
And you didn't have to pick or choose either one. You know what I'm saying? It's that realization. I remember when President Biden announced he was not going to continue running for re-election, that he instantly endorsed Vice President Harris. Right. And, there was a drag out. But if you research that closely, if you notice, it wasn't black older Democrats that had an issue with her. right? It was the older white ones. They were the ones saying don't, because if they can go into convention, right? But what was interesting is what I was hearing from people in the world I work in is they weren't talking about the white Democrats in Congress or saying anything. They were saying, where are the Obamas? What do they think about Kamala Harris? Right? It's like, well, if the Obamas are not with her, like, again, pick a side, right? So then when they finally came out to the convention and they were very loud and boisterous, then all of a sudden it's like everybody got quiet again. But it is the mindset of you got to pick a side. Because only one's gonna really work.
And let me put this out there. They're doing it now, right?
Yeah.
Pick a side, Republican or Democrat. Pick a side.
Yeah.
Let's get to the point where we can pick the best person, right? Whether it's Republican or Democrat, the best person who has all of this. I don't want to pick between. We've said this before on our show, the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, that was the Trump and Hillary.
Well, in America, with all this education, with all these people who are scholars, who have the ability, let's start picking the best of the best, because the best of the best is going to put us at the best to be.
But you know what, Fresh, you can't pick the best of the best when what are the qualifications to be president? None.
I should not be a convicted felon being
None.
able to run
It's
for
no
office.
qualifications.
So
what?
we got
You need
to
to be a
go
nationalized. You need to be a natural citizen.
Yep.
And you need to be
32
35.
years old. Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
And then again,
how do we get a pool of the best when there are no qualifications?
And then
Pookie can run for president if Pookie can run for president.
I would vote for Pookie.
And I'm gonna vote for Pookie.
Listen, if Pookie has the
I
best,
don't care what Pookie got.
plan. You see, that's the problem. That's the problem. We got to go. We got to leave that
if
concept.
Trump can be president, Pookie can be president.
We got to go back to the concept of why I want to vote, and I will be voting for Vice President Harris. She is the most qualified. You go down her
qualifications. Where are you getting these qualified from? There are no qualifications.
Even if there's no qualifications, show me your resume. Show me your resume. Pookie, you can't show me your resume. You can't make it here today.
You didn't ask for my resume. It says be born in America. We need to get to the
place where we are picking the best
out of the best.
Not the best out of the least.
You said send me your resume. I want to see your resume.
Show me what you've done in the past to show me what you could do in the future. Listen. And I guess that's what we need to get to in America, so that no matter where you choose, there is no separation, whether you pick Democrat or Republican, that person is pushing for a better America, for a better people, for a better republic.
And they will not last long. They won't last long, because at the end of the day, America is about her money. And so you can just look at Jimmy Carter, who was one of the most noble men that had ever been elected in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. They gave that man hell and they ran him out of office. They were like, you will not run again. But all of his initiatives were humanitarian initiatives, and they call him one of the worst presidents in the United States of America. And it's hopefully untrue.
Right.
Habitat for Humanity, Medicare, all of these different things were able to blossom under his tutelage. But because he was someone who was looking out for the people, he was not looking out for the money, the capitalism of America and the power of America, then he was dismissed. And so, America it's a fairly new country. It's not very old, right? Correct. And so, but what it has been driven by all the time is money and violence.
And that, again, going back to what I said, Civil War.
They use violence to take what they want. So, we have these two systems. We had a third party that arose, the populist system, and that was, you're going to see a lot of Black people and farmers are in that party. Mm-hmm. They killed all those people. They broke that up, because if it's working and it's working against the status quo, we're going to decimate it. So we've got it. This is the hand that we're dealt. And then what we don't want to do, like I showed you, Lisa, I sent you that video of Malcolm and Martin and that young man that wrote in Instagram, which I thought was the best oration about why people should vote, why people who feel disenchanted or who feel hopeless or powerless should vote. And the short answer was, you may not have the candidate that you believe in, because you got three choices. You've got Trump, Harris, or not to vote. And the reason
some other people on that ticket.
If you don't, please, and if you don't, if you,
you already want to put Pookie out there, write Pookie in.
I will. But he was saying you may not line up with Trump. You may not line up with Harris, because there are a lot of people who don't like, there are a lot of Black folk who don't like some of the policies the Democratic Party stands for. We're divided in our houses over abortion, over marriage, over marijuana. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that. And so, people have their allegiances. But what he's saying was, but what you must recognize is that the gains that have been made so far, if you do not vote, that's at jeopardy, and they will roll back. And we see that. We've seen that step by step. We forget that Trump was president for 4 years.
4 years.
He's not a new candidate. What did he do in the 4 years that he was president to move the country forward?
Backwards.
If you can give me a list,
right,
then you might open my mind to this. But that was a regime that caused chaos
and confusion
and dissension.
Correct.
And so, how you gonna handle it? So my point is saying is, you have to see what's going to keep us moving forward and not moving backward. And I can't be mad at people who vote someone different than I support. But at the end of the day, the way that Black folk have ever made any progress in this country is we had to work together. I teach my students that all the time. We had to work together. And the minute we slide from that playbook,
correct,
we're trapped, regardless of who's in office.
Correct.
Listen, this has been Kitchen Talk CTC. I told y'all it was gonna get hot. And they cook. I told y'all the kitchen was gonna get hot tonight. I so love it, appreciate it. So listen.
2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now.
You have, check and see if you can even still. I don't think you can if you have not registered to vote.
Nope.
Time is up.
I know for Leon County you can't.
Nah, they can wait for the midterm election. Midterm election. Let's get ready for the midterm election.
And I'm really only giving passes to the 18-year-olds, if that much. But if you over 18, you ought to be a registered voter by now.
Come on
and
now.
if you think your vote does not matter, just think about all of the initiatives that are being executed to prevent you from voting.
Yeah.
Yep. They trying to take away the Department of Education.
It is some real tactics out there to keep people from voting.
This is crazy.
And so we be mindful, be watchful. If something don't seem right, call somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Call me.
Somebody. Early voting has
call Pookie.
Don't call Pookie. Don't call Pookie.
Listen,
but you can call me.
Call them and let them know. Let them know. Call the NAACP.
Yep.
Call the Urban League. Call whoever you can think to call and let them know what is going on. Something that was kind of alarming. We gotta go, but I gotta say this. Something that was kind of alarming that I heard on the news report today was that the Republican Party have enlisted about 200 volunteers to be in the precincts, in the room. I don't know how that worked, but they supposed to, be overlooking, making sure people don't vote twice and making sure this and making sure that. I'm like, I don't know how that works. But anyway, what I'm saying is there are tactics out there, guys, that we have to make sure we are paying attention to what is going on. It's real.
Stay safe, stay blessed.
Vote like your life depends on it.
Because it does.
I wasn't gonna say it, but
I'm trying to tell you.
Who keeps the president?
no,
It is
your
the
life
president.
depends on. I can't tell you who to vote for.
Pookie.
But vote.
oh,
You already said
Lord.
Pookie.
No,
Pookie not on the ballot.
I'll write in Lisa. I will write in Rev before I write
Do
in.
not waste your vote
I
on the
don't know
writing
Pookie.
in.
Yes, please.
Listen,
Every Pookie in America now thinking they about to become president. Because of
I-
Lisa.
hey. I vote for Pookie over Trump. Sorry.
We gotta go.
I think I'm with you on that one.
Listen, okay. Oh, you joining me on something? Oh my goodness. Listen, if you are watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you will not miss another show. If you are watching us on Facebook, hit the like button. Also turn on your notifications so you won't miss another show. Listen, we are here every Thursday at 9:00, just having these great conversations, and hopefully you're having great conversations as well. Let's keep talking, let's keep working, let's keep doing. This is our life, this is our world, and we do have a say, and your say is at the ballot box.
Amen.
It is at the ballot box. Thank you, Dr. McLeod. Thank you, Dr. McGhee. Elder McGhee. Just invite me to the graduation. That's all.
Hey, listen. Make sure I'm there too.
Thank you, Dr. Moyes. I think you're working on one. You just ain't told me yet.
I am. You know.
It's happening. You hadn't told me, but I know.
Amen.
Yeah, I know.
About.
That's okay. Y'all go ahead, y'all young people. I'm not going back.
I love that.
Listen, thank you so much for joining us in the kitchen. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk.